Best Public Affairs Program. And the star goes to Open for Business Net 25.
It is a signal to the world that we are open for business.
We are now open for business. This is Cesar Vallejos bringing you yet another episode to guide you in discovering your passion and growing your business as we learn from experts in the field. Sama-sama tayong matuto sa isa na namang makabuluhang usapan tungo sa pagpapaunlad ng inyong negosyo. Ang Open for Business ay mapapanood nyo rin sa Facebook, YouTube. Siguraduhin mag-like at mag-subscribe sa aming social media page at Net25 TV. Alamin natin, suriin mula sa mga negosyante, thought leaders at mga personalidad sa iba't ibang larangan ang mga strategies, trends at mahalagang karanasan sa pagninegosyo dahil tayo ay open for business. Wouldn't it be great to see our homegrown brands make waves in the global stage, similar to the diaspora? Join us on a journey that transcends boundaries and explores the endless potential of global expansion, guided by the insights and wisdom of Sherill Ramos-Quintana, founding president of ORYSPA and chairperson of the Philippine Franchise Association, as she shares with us her expertise on entrepreneurial journey beyond Philippine shores.
Makaka-relate kay you?
Menopause.
Yes.
Meron ka bang nararamdaman ng mga signs ng menopause?
Menopause really happens. In my case, I had a condition called endometriosis.
Miss Corina, ganda po ng hair nyo. Ano pong shampoo nyo?
Mapa-senior man kay you?
My apos are here, they're here with me, and they give me such joy. And so, kung hindi ako magtatrabaho, how could I spoil them?
O Gen Z?
Nar is actually an accent from Australia. So like when you say no, you don't say no. They say nar.
Bida kayo dito.
Shamay! So,
Let's just always choose to be kind.
Kaya ugaliin ang tumutok kung saan masaya at maganda ang simula ng araw. 10 a.m. to 12, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, kada umaga. This
In the dynamic and competitive business landscape, the path of turning local successes into global triumphs is a challenging one. And here to share the entrepreneurial journey of homegrown brands to the global stage and someone who proved that indeed it can be done, please welcome the President and CEO of ORYSPA and the Chairperson of the Philippine Franchise Association, a seasoned trailblazer and visionary mentor with a profound understanding of the intricacies involved in taking micro, small, and medium enterprises to the international stage. Ms. Sherill Ramos-Quintana. How are you, Ms. Sherill?
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be with you.
We met several times in franchising expos.
Yes.
So far po, gaano po ba ka-vibrant ngayon ang franchising industry?
Well, we have, as you know, across the industries, there are a lot of problems that we encounter. The economy was down. But of course, Filipinos are always adaptable, diba, when it comes to crisis. So we have also a lot of successful stories during the pandemic. In fact, the Franchise Expo na pinuntahan ninyo last year in October, you've seen how vibrant, the exhibitors were. We even had almost half of the entire exhibitors were new. And also, ito yung mga pandemic babies, no? During the pandemic, nagsimula yung businesses nila, and we welcome them all to join the Franchise Asia Expo. After the pandemic, it was the first time we had the first face-to-face after the pandemic times, yung 2 years na wala. So, yeah, we're all excited. And this year, we're holding the Expo again in October, the Franchise Asia Philippines Expo. It's going to be at SMX again. And of course, we welcome to have you to be part of the Expo as well. And in fact, we're welcoming 800 exhibitors this time.
Wow.
So, pinuno namin yon SMX first floor and second floor. And then also, that coincides with the Philippines hosting. So, Philippine Franchise Association is hosting the World Franchise Council and the Asia Pacific Franchise Confederation meetings in October, that same week. So,
I mentioned in my earlier, in my introduction that there's a lot of global brands, of course, but we seldom hear homegrown brands going to the global
international,
stage.
yes.
So, what are your insights?
well, that has been my lifelong advocacy. In fact, I have my book actually I published during the pandemic. Talaga nasakto pa siya. So everybody was telling me, She, why did you have to launch a book during the height of the lockdowns? It was in June 2020 that I launched the Yes, the Filipino Brand Can book. But it proved to be also very timely because a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, are down and they feel like, how are we going to get out of this crisis? So there has to be an inspiration, a motivation. So I actually talked to the CEOs of brands who were able to bring their brands globally. So a lot of them already started that advocacy as well for their own brands many years ago. So when I started my own brand, this is my 23rd year as an entrepreneur. I used to be a manufacturer and toll OEM provider for a lot of brands in the market. And I joined the retail and the franchising sector in 2010 and then 2011. I launched my brand ORYSPA in the same expo that we were together in 2011.
Based on your interviews with the CEOs, ano po ba ang sekreto? What are their key drivers of success? Bakit nadala nila ang kanilang mga brands sa global market?
Yes, thank you for that. Because talagang very exciting. The reason I also shared my own journey, for having that thinking or thought na, why do we need to bring these brands globally? Dito pa lang, ang dami na nating consumer, 'di ba? Market, malaki na sa Philippines. But this can actually be a driver nga for growth, as you said, and also be a bearer of the culture, of the Filipino heritage, of the Filipino culture that we have so much to offer to the world. So our brands can be carriers, 'di ba? And so when I talk to the CEOs, what are the success indicators for them? Unang-una is that they should have a Filipino following. There should be a brand equity in the Philippines. When I was starting, I saw a lot of exporters and their products are not available in the Philippines. Di ba sad? You go to the expo, the international expo, and you cannot buy the products because it's all exclusive to the principal, to the foreign market. So, no longer that way, and it's you have to have a brand equity, a following of the Filipinos and the Filipino community. As you said nga, the diaspora of the Filipinos overseas has to know your brand. Second, of course, when it comes to operations, back end, you have to be prepared. Because like I always use the metaphor, the pond and the ocean. The international market is an ocean. So you don't know how many sharks or who's there, what creatures are you going to encounter. So in a pond, when you grow big, you feel like you're the biggest already, right? There's not much challenge. So it's both also a welcome exercise for our homegrown brands to think that they're going to bring their brands globally, even if it's not yet, it's not yet in their immediate target, diba? Even if they want to grow successfully in the Philippines alone in the first 3-5 years, but they have to have that sight of making their brand a Filipino global brand in the future. Why? Because you challenge yourself to grow bigger. You dream big. So you always, it's always a humbling stature for you to grow, to set your sights on a bigger scale.
You mentioned about following, and specifically, this is Filipino following. What is it that would make Filipinos take on that brand? Is it our sense of community, our sense of belongingness?
You know what I noticed? If we sample products to these big retail chains abroad, foreign retail chains, they are actually asking, what is the brand equity from the local market? Because now that we've grown also, different communities in different territories, Filipinos are everywhere. You've got to already have a captured market there. Now you're asking, what is the quality of a brand for the Filipinos to embrace it? First, it should be authentic. Authentically sharing the Filipino culture of being family-oriented, a sense of community. It also brings, nostalgia to them of, it feels like home. In one piece of a product, you feel like home is there with them. So there's a lot of longing now for local products, not just for our Filipinos who live overseas, but locally. But there's a clamor for more local products. And I think the pandemic also, one of the silver linings during that crisis is that we're able to see how imminent for our homegrown brands to be there, to be present in the immediate community. Kasi diba, yung mobility ng mga consumer, hirap. You can only purchase the products within your barangay, within your village. So that has become a catalyst for our brands. Oh, hey, we're always looking, expansions outside, but you've got to also embrace your community to be able to love there's an emotional connection for your brand locally.
Yan ba yung sinasabi nila na hyper-localization?
Yes, yes, perfect. That's one of the trends now in business, the hyper-localism. Meaning, it's not just buying local, it's not just buying Filipino products, but also within your immediate community. In the franchising sector, a lot were worried about that because before, the idea of franchising is that you've got to go to the mall, you have to go to the city centers to be able to purchase or try or eat the favorite products, right? But now, because of the hyper-localism, that trend in business, the market now looks at the brands that are present in the immediate locality. Sino yung brand na nasa bayan mo, nasa village mo, or nasa barangay mo, di ba? That's why we can see a lot of brands that have been more prolific when it comes to expansions. And that also
baka nga it brings more revenues to them.
Yes. Especially during the time that the mobility is much more lax, the protocols, the health protocols are not as stricter in the metropolitan cities like Metro Manila. So you have stores that are more open, let's say in Iloilo, in Cebu, in Davao, than in your Metro Manila stores because of the health protocols are stricter, for example. So, or you now see brands that are catering now to even the countryside, rural areas, the metropolitan centers in the provinces. So, it's exciting actually because you now see that the brands bring their products, bring their brands closer to the market. The trend before, the market goes to the city centers to purchase the product. So baliktad na siya ngayon, it's reverse. So hyperlocalism is in fact also very patronizing for local brands because if you are a foreign company, for example, and you've just set footing in the Philippines, you tend to go to the mega centers, right? So before you're able to localize or before you're able to adapt to the countryside, medyo matagal. Unlike homegrown brands, for example, especially now we have, people who do home resellership, home-based resellership, or
Yes.
there are distribution areas in the countryside. I think it can be like, seen like a guerrilla marketing sort of. No?
Okay,
Yeah.
but before we go into that guerrilla marketing, then you mentioned earlier that for you to be able to tap or penetrate the international market, you have to have that back end
Yeah.
and brand
equity.
So, how do you define brand equity, and how do you develop or create a brand equity?
Very simple lang actually ang brand equity, no? It's the commercial value of your brand. How do you translate that? How do you monetize, the value of your brand? It's basically also now the connection. So you're not really, looking at the features of your brand per se or the benefits of it, but the emotional connection to your customers. So how do you build that? It is built over the years. It's, brands are not built overnight. That's why, during the pandemic, kailangan nagtatanim ka, di ba? So you can have something to reap in terms of your brand equity. And during that time, the trends, of course, with the customers is sustainability. People are looking at brands who value support to sustainability, pro-environment, or what causes are you embracing as a brand. And that also translates to your commercial value of your brand. So building it is slowly, but of course you have to be on the good side of the customer. That also helps when you bring your brand globally, because your customers, for example, for us, there are a lot of our customers who are able to use that, bring it back home, for their pain and stress relief. When they come back, may uuwi ng Pilipinas, can you buy me that product, that specific product, to bring back to wherever they are? So that brand equity can be translated to, of course, revenues, diba? How do you now measure your growth sales rate, for example, when you bring your brand in the expansion mode globally? At the end of the day, it's still revenue that spells your
Tama.
success, diba?
Yeah, as you explain it, so brand equity is like, everything in it na, from your commercial value, emotional connection, maybe how your customers feel about the brand. Ganon ba
What
yun?
your brand represents also.
So, but
is it
there-
authentically, community-oriented, family-oriented? Does it espouse, being pro-environment, for example? All the values should be incorporated in the brand.
But
And
how do you measure brand equity? May measurement ba yan in terms of...
following, of course.
Okay.
In terms of your brand loyalty, your consumer being loyal to you. You can see also in your the migration, of course, to e-commerce, diba? If your customers follow you wherever you go, you can measure that. But of course, the quantitative measure always goes to
revenues,
profit margin.
profit margins.
Diba? So,
Okay.
because all businesses thrive because of sales, because of the revenues coming in. Now, that goes also to the second point that I was saying earlier. How do you prepare for global expansion? You have to be prepared on the back end. So both food and non-food, a lot of brands, for example, in the food sector, they were able to grow dramatically, especially in franchising, because franchising is a very exponential, yung growth niya. The business model also creates a leveraging platform of the market. Kasi you can grow dramatically through franchising. Some brands fail in terms of, at the height of expansions, they can no longer support the stores, the number of franchises they are welcoming in. So that's why I'm saying you have to be prepared back end, meaning your operational systems are in place, your training is in place, your support to your franchisees are in place, for example. Now, when it comes to financial KPIs, for example, you have to be prepared in terms of capitalization when you bring your brand overseas. So, parang sinimplihan ko lang, there are just two, brand equity and back end. But it's a lot of work.
Yes. But in that case, only few Filipino brands make it there, because with these two things that you mentioned, this actually needs a lot of considerations, both marketing, financial, and as you mentioned, if you're not ready to take it up, you will lose in the end. Because the bottom line, of course, would be your profits. But in the other spectrum, we also see a lot of small businesses making it in the international market via social media. Si Aling Nene na meron siyang kakanin. She went online, and there you go. She develops her own let's use the fancy term brand equity, via online. Pero doon, hindi na niya kailangan ng malaking kapital. In that case, what's your view on small businesses naman using the internet or online as a tool for them to reach the international market? Sabi mo nga, between pond and ocean. Sa kanila, yung internet is the ocean itself. And here they are, without necessarily using the franchise model, they develop their own. Okay lang din ba yun? And what's your take on that?
Yes, actually, whatever contributes to our basket of Filipino brand equity as a whole, collectively, is really good for us. Now, you're correct. We have, because of the Internet of Things, we see now a lot of brands who are able, or products, even Filipino products, that are able to capture or bring their brands available offshore, diba? In different territories through the internet. They ship it out easily. They can be reached already by customers abroad. And even balikbayans also come here, buy wholesale, and then they try to distribute it among their friends. It is very good for us in terms of the collective growth of the Filipino brand. But what I always believe also, as I've seen I started very small. I started as a micro enterprise, became small, became medium. So we grew layer by layer. And I've seen that there are overnight successes. Now that's good, but you have to make sure that you can last long term. It's still sustainability at the end of the day. How long can you go, or how far can you bring your products or your brand using the internet or the e-commerce, for example? That is where you build the infrastructure. That is what I'm saying, that you have to be prepared back end. Diba? So you don't really have to, set up a store there or something like that. You have to find your partners. That's why this is an era of collaboration. You cannot, survive alone in the ocean, but find, allies, find collaborators, because now...
How do you do that? Yun ang usong-uso ngayon.
Yes.
Sinabi, let's collab. Yan.
Correct.
So, how do you find collabs that align, who will align with you to further grow your business?
First and foremost, for me, I'm a very, even if businesses are run professionally, at the end of the day, it's really very personal. What do you believe in? What do I believe? What are our values? It should align. And if you believe in my vision, I should also have the trust in my partner to be able to help me out or to work together to bring that to a certain length, diba? So, and also, that comes, what comes to mind right now when we're talking, what is the difference? You may ask, no? What is the difference between brands who are able to build it overnight, for example, and those brands who have a lasting power or staying power in the global market? You have to have your USP very identified, or your unique proposition. Unique selling proposition mo. And that comes to the entrepreneur who clearly knows your brand map. What is your brand representing about? What is the cause that you're embracing? Why would I choose you over another brand? we know how expensive raw materials are in the Philippines. Labor is very expensive. So when we compete with other countries, we might find ourselves less affordable than the other products in the global market. But that's where, you know, the connection comes in to your market or to your consumer, and you build it day per day. Each customer always is important, you know, big or small is important. You have to look at them on, you know, equally. Kasi everybody contributes to the collective power of your brand. Yun nga, binasabi natin the equity of your brand. So, what I'm trying to say is, there may be overnight successes. Now with the internet, for example, or the e-commerce platforms, you can buy products. Sometimes nga, biro ko, mas madali pa yung products coming in from other countries coming into you than products you order from Mindanao or, you know, elsewhere in the country, di ba? It takes 5 days or longer. Samantalang iba, 3 days lang. But there is always the staying power. And you know what? When I was talking to the CEOs that I interviewed for the the Filipino brand Ken, and they all were happy. I was, you know, parang jittery when I was talking to them kasi syempre parang ang liit ko, no, compared sa kanila that when they built it. And you know what? They told me, Jollibee is also here, and he was telling me, your trajectory as a founder is the same as mine when I was starting, but that was decades ago. You know? So meaning to say that panapanahon lang yan. Dapat lang tayong magtanim, no? Yung we have to really grow our brand in terms of how customers will love it. And the crisis for me is sort of an opportunity for us to connect more. Kasi during the lockdowns, and if you are running a brick and mortar store in the mall and it's closed, how do you reach your customer? You know, for us, okay, we have this directory, we run promos, we have an ambassador card that we're extending discounts to customers, so we have a database. Now you can call, diba? So you can still service them through your office, even if your stores are closed. So meaning to say that if before entrepreneurs or brand owners really do not pay, you know, huge attention to customers, now everybody is asking, what else can I do to retain my customers? So I think that's a welcome change for all of us, and it's a humbling proposition also for a lot of entrepreneurs now to learn, big and small.
Yes.
Oo.
Which exactly is related to my next question. Siyempre, during the pandemic, a lot, diba, parang before we were talking about the fourth industrial revolution, blah, blah, blah. The key drivers would be the large-scale enterprise going into these new technologies, but the key driver really is COVID-19. Diba?
Kasi huli naman na tayo eh.
So,
we need pa COVID-19, diba, to catalyze.
So, ngayon, how important is the agility or being agile or being quick to pivot to this? Kasi pag malaking kumpanya, minsan nga mas matagal sila mag-pivot or mag-change ng direction. Unlike kapag maliit, dahil mababa lang ang operational costs nila, mas madali silang mag-shift agad. So, ito ba ay part din ng paghahanda mo para makapag-create ka ng magandang brand equity? Even if technically you are not building that brand equity, how quick should CEOs or business owners adapt to the changes? And what I like about what you said is, kung dati, magko-customer research ka pa, marketing research ka to get
market
feedback from you, diba? Eh ngayon, hindi. Ikaw, parang sinasabi mo, you have to deal na with your customers. Alamin mo na ano pa ang gusto, ano pa yung may offer mo. So, what's your take on that?
How fast? It should be every day. You know, you have to be prepared every day to embrace change. You don't need a crisis to realize that the entrepreneur's key strategy is innovation. So it's not just adaptability to change and doing nothing about it, but really innovating from the crisis that you're facing. And you know, in the Philippines, entrepreneurs face challenges on a daily basis. From, compliances and all. We face challenges on a daily
natural
basis.
disasters.
To natural disasters.
Bagyo.
Diba? So, I think you should be prepared enough on a daily basis.
Pero ngayon kasi, 'di ba, parang when you go into the international market, malaking ocean na 'yon, 'di ba?
Yeah,
So, sa mga gustong magnegosyo or may mga businesses na gustong dalhin sa international market, napag-aralan mo rin ba paano yung messaging nila? O dapat pag international market ka na, ito na.
CRV, when I was starting, and we used to be indirect exporter, because I'm a manufacturer. I'm not doing retail or franchising before ORYSPA. And what I have seen are Filipino entrepreneurs, on general, especially suppliers, always look forward to bringing their brands overseas. Parang it's the measure of success. The indicator of success is bringing your brands to the shelves in the US or the other markets. Now, what is missing is yung sinasabi nga natin na kilala ba yan ng mga Pilipino, yung products mo? Have you built your following locally? Even if you see that your revenues or sales outside the Philippines is dollars, no? Here, pesos. Yung sinasabi natin, wag mong mamaliitin yung benta mo in the local market. Kasi it helps you also build your following overseas. Now, it also prepares you, di ba? Because while you are building it here, you also have to be prepared on the back end, no? Kaya ba ng supply mo? Kung ikaw ay food, may commissary ka ba? Is it state of the art to be able to support, your expansions overseas? Do you have enough people to train your new entrants, di ba, to the team? Now, what I'd like for people to actually remember, especially MSMEs, our MSMEs entrepreneurs, is that when you are able now to have a following here, don't expect that when you bring your brand in the global market, it will readily be embraced. That's just a factor. Filipino community overseas is a good community to start. But for you to be able to be a global brand or a known brand,
parang for your brand to resonate to the international market, anong gagawin mo?
You have to be mainstream, part of the mainstream market.
How do you do that?
How do you do that? Of course, you have to know what that particular market is looking for. So that's where actually we've seen a lot of brands, especially franchise brands. They tweak it to a point that's still faithful or aligned with their brand values, but they tweak it based on the local market. So yung tinatawag nating localization of a brand to be able to adapt to a particular market. Kasi there are cultural nuances in the territories that you're going to bring your brand. You don't expect them that how Filipinos embrace your brand is the same thing that they will embrace your brand as well.
What I'm getting here, Miss Sherill, is parang maganda yung sinasabi mo na parang yung bawat Pilipino ginagawa mong brand ambassador.
Yes.
Diba? Pero kahit na brand ambassador siya, kailangan mag-resonate din siya.
Oo.
Hindi lang yun. Kasi like for example, assuming, di ba parang we have a lot of parang we export our talents. Di ba? Yung in-export natin na talents, halimbawa sa Hong Kong at magkaiba sa talent na nasa Thailand. Di ba? Kasi, di ba, magkaiba yun. Lalo na sa Singapore or sa Dubai. So, depende rin yung kung sa Hong Kong, alam naman natin, marami tayong mga kababayan in those areas where the job opportunities for Filipinos are different there in those areas. So, ganun ba yun? Aralin mo rin yung sinasabi mo ngang mainstream doon and somehow basta may Filipino, ano pa rin yun, Filipino heart or Filipino...
The brand authenticity.
Parang when you say mainstream media na, di ba, what the market likes is something that they like, that's part of their culture. So how do you marry that?
you have to be unique in an ocean of a lot of offerings, no? Especially in bigger markets like the US, no? Europe, or the Middle East now. Like for example, in UAE, there are a lot of offerings as well. So that's where your authenticity as a Filipino brand comes in. Even if you're not just catering to the Filipinos, your positioning should be mainstream. You're ready for the mainstream market, no? But of course, unlike if it's Filipino food, you have to make a presentation to make it, palatable for different markets. Now, when it comes to, it's good that we are able to have a lot of communities, Filipino communities, thriving Filipino communities overseas. As you've mentioned, there are a lot of Filipino diaspora all over the world. I'd like to think that our brands, the Filipino homegrown brands, in fact, is a bearer of the culture. Yeah. So we've seen, our Asian neighbors, for example, there were sa food, CRV, what they tend, for example, to do, like Thai food. You can now buy different ingredients to come up with a particular product or particular dish, and it's made available to the Thai people wherever they go. For Filipinos overseas to be able to make a dish, for example, the sinigang, adobo, whatever, to actually be able to access raw materials authentically to build that dish or cook that dish. So also in terms of going back to what we were talking on, knowing what your customers like, for example, not just the mainstream pa, no? For our MSMEs, kasi a lot of your viewers are waiting also, what if I'm a small business owner and I have a brick and mortar store? I cannot fund a market feasibility study. Well, the internet, if you have a Facebook page or an e-commerce site, they give you insights, what your market profile is, etc., diba, the data. But as simple as manning your store for a day, for example, or a couple of days in a week. Malalaman mo. Kasi you will be upfront your customers, diba? Face-to-face with them. You talk to them. Well, that's what I do. Even if before, kasi I used to. But nowadays, when it comes to like new products are coming out, for example, I go to a particular store, man the store, and talk to the customers. How do you know about us? How do you like about the brand? So, do you prefer the old one with this new one? You'll know the answers right away. Of course, it's random.
Face-to-face talaga ginagawa. We're very hands-on. So, business owners should be really hands-on. Tama.
You have to be hands-on, especially if you're growing. If you're in your years of growing your brand. Of course, for the bigger ones who have already built their brands over the decades, for example, and you already have the second generation, third generation, they probably have their army of, think tanks with them to help them decide, have them critical decisions. But as MSMEs or the small and medium business owners, you still have to be adept with your operations. You have to know, what your customers really like about you, which ones should go, for example, in terms of your list of products. Yeah, you have to be, you cannot sit on your laurels and I just feel beautiful now because I'm successful.
Yes.
Cannot do that. Yes, as I've told you, an entrepreneur's adaptability to change should be every day.
Yes, wow. I'm also interested on how the government works with the private sector in the promotion of the brand, because in our conversation, in the promotion of the brand in the international market, because the way our conversation went, parang malaking bagay yung pagiging Pilipino na dadalhin mo siya sa international market. Parang ngayon, ang pinopromote halimbawa ng Korea ay ang kanilang culture. Kaya napunta na sa film, sa music, everything.
Yes.
Napag-usapan din natin ang pagkain. There's Thai food, there's Japanese food, Thai cuisine, Western cuisine. Parang in one of our shows nga, na pag-uusapan din, meron ba talaga tayong Filipino cuisine or Filipino dish? May mga ganon. So, ang laking bagay yung suporta ng government sector para talagang, sige, tutulungan ka talaga na magkaroon ng hindi lang following dito sa Pilipinas, kundi nakapag dinala na natin sa abroad, talagang somehow, unti-unti, makapasok siya sa mainstream.
You're correct with that observation, really. When I was doing this book, and I tried to do researches, not just for the Philippines and the Filipino brands, but also I reviewed studies, and I've seen that in Asia, Asian branding, Japan had made it so well. Do you still remember, of course, di na natin inabutan, but our lolos would say, ay, gawang Hapon yan. Meaning to say, hindi maganda.
Ko naman yan.
But now, of course, when you talk about Japanese brand, wow, it's like in a different level. Because they were able to actually focus on how they're going to brand themselves as a country, that they have that credibility. Now we've seen Korean products also thriving. You know why? Because they were able to share their culture through K-pop. You see a lot of K-novelas watched by the Filipinos, and their product placements are there. So at the end of the day, now you ask me, She, how do we do that? How government can help? There has to be that mindset from government and the business sector or the private sector to collectively work on together to build that Filipino brand. Do we have a Filipino brand? Yes, we do have. For me, at the end of the day, there should be public-private partnership, and we should collectively work on together to build and nurture that Filipino brand. Now, how do we do that? It's really on the collective mindset. I always say it takes a whole nation to build a Filipino brand. Whether it be a product on food, service, retail, it takes a whole nation to believe that you and me and everyone else, all the Filipinos, are in the same basket. When one fails, for example, in a campaign, the rest of us goes down the drain.
Wow, that's a very good way to end this conversation. I promise you that Miss Sherill will come back here in Open for Business to continue the discussion, because I only asked 3 questions. The rest have not been asked yet. So thank you very much, Miss Sherill, and I hope that you can come back here in Open for Business and your ideas will be great. Maybe in the next episode, we'll talk about her book and her other businesses and her other specialties. She shared a lot of insights with Open for Business, and to you small businesses, the business owners, she's giving us a lot of inspiration, but we hope that there's more that you can share. Thank you very much to the President and CEO of ORYSPA Spa Solutions and the Chairperson of Philippine Franchise Association. Open for Business will be back. Stay with us.
This
routine patrol with 4 bots and chases. He's awoke in the strangest of places. Earth was their home now, and in addition, Optimus Prime gave them this mission.
Join the rescue bots at their missions this September.
Watch and learn, partner.
The bots go head-to-head with animals. Investigate the mystery of the invisible thieves.
What on earth? Where did he...
I'm gonna get to the bottom of this.
Stop Griffin Rock from turning into a musical.
Over and out. Power up and energize.
Retrieve the quantum crystal.
I'm on it.
And return Griffin Rock to its original location.
Can I count on you?
Rescue Boss. Assemble at Net 25 every Saturday at 9:30 a.m.
Opo ang inyong katuwang tungkol sa usaping ito.
Nasa puso dapat ng Pilipino to love what is Filipino.
Kaya dapat ihayag ng saloobin.
Kahit gaano kasi karami yung doktor natin, kung may bayad din, baliwala din.
Paano makakabili ang Pilipino ng bigas?
Himayin ang hinaing.
Gaano karaming pera bang kailangan mo para maging masaya ka?
Alamin ang pwedeng gawin.
So I think the lesson is, pag may fake news, i-correct ka agad ng people concerned.
Sagutin mo agad. Mag-reality check tayo.
Check yun.
Check.
Check na check.
Double check.
Check the check tayo dyan.
Spoil them.
O Gen Z?
Nar is actually an accent from Australia. So like when you say no, you don't say no. They say nar.
Bida kayo dito.
Sumay!
Let's just always choose to be kind.
Kaya ugaliin ang tumutok kung saan masaya at maganda ang simula ng araw. 10 a.m. to 12, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, kada umaga.
Welcome back to Open for Business. Here are the trending business news around the world. EV registration seen to grow 30% annually. Electric vehicle or EV registration is projected to grow 30% annually, according to the Department of Energy, based on preliminary rough data. Patrick Tiaquino, director of the DOE's Energy Utilization Management Bureau, said that the government is looking at about 100,000 EV registrations by 2028. Based on data from the Land Transportation Office, 8,105 motorcycles and tricycles, 1,168 sport and other utility vehicles, 347 cars, 44 buses, and 2 trailer trucks were registered in 2022. Reports from the Electric Vehicle Association of the Philippines showed that 2,536 EV units were sold during the first quarter, higher than the 426 sold in the entirety of 2022. Second quarter building permits dropped 14.9%. Declines in approved building permits and value of construction projects were reported during the second quarter. Only 36,136 approved building permits were issued, falling short by 14.9%, the Philippine Statistics Authority said. Meanwhile, approved projects were valued at just 87.83 billion pesos versus 104.33 billion pesos in the first quarter and year-on-year tally of 106.02 billion pesos. Airline fuel surcharge increased to level 6 in September. Air travel will be costly this September as the Civil Aeronautics Board or CAB raises fuel surcharge 2 notches to level 6 from level 4. The increase means passengers will have to shoulder a fuel surcharge of between 185 pesos and 665 pesos for domestic flights, and between 610 pesos and 37 centavos and 4,538 pesos and 40 centavos for international flights. At only level 4, the allowed fuel surcharge per passenger is between 117 pesos to 342 pesos for domestic flights, and from 385 pesos and 70 centavos to 2,867 pesos and 82 centavos for international flights. According to CAB Officer in Charge Maria Elben S. El Moro, the applicable conversion for the September 1 to 30 period is based on 54 pesos and 97 centavos per US dollar. And that's our news roundup. I am Randy Bernardino for Open for Business.
Open for Business is at the helm. The progress in foreign investment pledges the Philippines continues to shine as a go-to destination for foreign investors, as shown by its stronger second quarter performance. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, investments approved by promotion agencies surged by 27.8% to 59.1 billion pesos from 46.3 billion in 2022. Saklaw ng pledges sa pangalawang quarter ang mga tinanggap at inaprubahan ng Board of Investments o BOI BARM, Clark Development Corporation, Clark International Airport Corporation, Philippine Economic Zone Authority at Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority. Ang bansang pinanggagalingan ng pinakamaraming investment pledges ay Japan, na katumbas ng 20.36 billion o 1/3 ng kabuuan. Sinundan ito ng Singapore 30% at Cayman Islands 20%. The manufacturing sector recorded the largest amount of approved investment at 35.1 billion or 59%. Sinundan naman ito ng sektor ng information at communication na may 13.92 billion pesos at administrative and support service activities na may 3.33 billion pesos. If these pledges come to fruition, they will greatly contribute to the government's economic growth target, which NEDA believes is still achievable. NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan believes the GDP growth target of 6 to 7% this year is still possible. This will also depend on the downtrend in inflation and how state agencies go with catch-up spending. With a few months left in 2023, the Philippines must keep up its good progress so far, driven by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s approach to foreign policy to keep investors interested and open for business. Open for Business is back, and our buzzword of the week is marketing. It is the process of integrating sales and marketing functions with the aim of having a common and integrated approach. Going global is not just about profit margins and market shares. It's your platform to tell your unique story to the world. Your brand's journey, its origin, its values. These are the beats that make it resonate across continents. Preserving your brand's authenticity while adapting to global dynamics is the key to standing out. Global success is formulated with determination, resilience, and vision. Best to cultivate a global mindset that encompasses curiosity, adaptability, and innovation as you open your business to the world. And with that, our quote of the week is, even if you're on the right track, you get run over if you just sit there. That's according to Will Rogers, American performer. Thank you very much, Miss Sherill. Maraming salamat sa iyo at sana ay makabalik ka sa isang oras na naman na pagsama sa amin upang tunghayan ang makabuluhang usapan ukol sa negosyo dito lang sa Open for Business. Hanggang sa susunod na linggo, samahan nyo kaming muli dito sa Open for Business. Catch us on Facebook, on YouTube. Like and subscribe on our social media page at Net25TV. We will bring you more insights from industry experts, thought leaders, CEOs, and featured SMEs. Together, let us help encourage business development in the Philippines. Sharpen your business acumen, feel the pulse, and set the trend for as long as you are informed and open for business. Ito po si Cesar Vallejos. Marami pong salamat.